So, what's up, everybody? This is BSP. So yeah, I'm just chilling over here in my car. I'm heading to Fukuoka tomorrow to hook up with my friend Mufasa up there. I'm gonna be up in Fukuoka for about 5 days. Actually, those 5 days gonna really turn into four because the 29th I'm gonna get there till like 9 o'clock at night. And then the 3rd, I'm leaving like early, like around 10 something in the morning. So I'm only gonna be there the 4 solid days. And I may or may not get to Nagasaki. I may try to get down to Nagasaki on the Shinkansen with my friend, because I really wanted to show him Nagasaki too. But it looks like Fukuoka's got so many things to see. I'm up here because I know I did that video yesterday on the visitor visa. There is another visa in Japan called the startup visa. Now, I'm going to put a link up here to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs site in Japan that shows you our requirements, because this startup visa is really good, especially in cities that are designated zones for various types of businesses. You can pretty much create any business you want. You just have to have a solid business plan. You have to have the funds available, ready to go. So that certificate of eligibility is going to play a large part in you being over here. And then you can be here for, get over here in a year and get yourself all set up and get things going for your business. Now, keep in mind that they're going to be monitoring you every month. Yes, they're going to be, there's checks and balances to this setup here. I just read a little bit on it. It's not as easy as you think. Some people say it's easy. It's easy in the sense to where you'd be surprised at what kind of businesses you can start up. You can pretty much start up any type of business as long as you have a good, solid business plan and you got some solid money backing it up. And it doesn't have to be a lot. You don't need no 5 million yen. You just have to have a solid plan that's going to generate some income and build a business here in Japan. So this is not for everybody, obviously. There's people you just can't get over here and just just try to play it, because that ain't going to happen. You're just going to end up wasting your own money. If you think that you're just going to get over here and just take advantage of the system, they're not going to let you do that. They're going to monitor you. One thing I do want to know, and this is how the Japanese cover their checks and balances, is when you're a foreigner living in Japan, even when you're Japanese, you are required by law to submit your address, let them know exactly where you're living. So let's say if you move 10 times a month, you still got to update that address at your local city office or wherever city office you land in, whatever area you land in. You have to always let the Japanese government know where you're living. It's the same in Germany. I heard this thing in Germany too, because I had a half sister living over. She's living in Germany now, and she told me it's the same way over there. That's how the government keeps track of all the people in the country. You have to register your domicile in Japan. So there's no messing around. So don't get over here and think you're just going to be like, okay, I'm just going to say I'm here for that and then do something else. Now I'm in Japan. Yay, yay, woo, woo. No, it doesn't happen like that. Japan is a very serious country, especially when it comes to these types of things, especially like immigration and whatnot. They're very serious about what they do, and they're very serious about what they mean. And what's good about the system here, actually, what keeps these checks and balances in place are the local. So everything is localized in Japan. It's not like, in the States, you can get away with bullshit because they nationalize the shit, immigration, everything like that. But everything is handled locally. So like my city here in Georgetown, we handle locally. I pay my taxes to the local city office. I register my domicile to the local city office. I'll let the local city office know. If I want to apply for a business license, I go to the local city. Everything is local. You get married to the local. You register your birth to the local. Everything is dealt locally, so that way they know exactly how many people they have. That's why when I go to the city office and I look at those numbers that I see up there on that board are accurate. If they say we have 181,032 people, we have 181,032 people. If they say we minus 67 people for this month, then we lost 67 people, either whether they moved out or somebody left and moved to Tokyo or somebody passed away. See? So those numbers are accurate. City offices are very good at keeping records of their citizens in their communities, because they want to make sure that they have the right amount of people there to support their community. That's what it is. So you have to know that. So you just can't come over here and just half step and half-ass do shit on that startup visa because this is a special visa. That's why I said the best way to get into Japan at first is to come here on a visitor visa. You don't need a certificate of eligibility on a visitor visa. You don't have to show nobody your bank statement on a visitor visa. You don't have to show nobody what you have in your bank account on a visitor visa. You just get here. The fact that you're paying for a place to live, like through a Leo Palace, which is not cheap, already shows the system that, hey, you can afford to do what you need to do. You can afford to live temporarily in Japan. And you're not even required to have to go through the city office when you do that. Oh, by the way, I'm registered here. But Leo Palace will be doing that behind the scenes. They'll say, well, yeah, we have this person, this passport number, living in this particular place for this particular time. That's what they do. They will handle that for you. See? So everything is accountable. Everyone is accountable in Japan. Everything is checked. They do their checks and balances very well here in Japan. So I wanted to stress that. I can't stress that enough. Now, another thing I want to bring up, and I don't know what I'm going to call this video, but because there's a couple topics here. So last night, we were looking over the election results here in Japan. As you probably already know, I know a lot of people don't get into Japanese politics. I don't even speak politics with Japanese, although I did text one of my neighbors today that speaks English, the guy who speaks English. I had texted him earlier and I said, hey, now that the Japanese elections are over in Japan and the elections didn't go the way some people wanted, which in a sense, what I'm trying to say is that the leading party, well, they were the leading party, when Prime Minister Ishida took over, because he's the head of the Liberal Democrats, right? So when he took over, he became prime minister, but then he said, okay, I want to call for special elections, lower house elections. So they dissolved parliament, and then they have elections. They carried those elections out yesterday. And so he did this because he wanted to get confidence from the people that they believe in the party. Well, they didn't get the confidence that they needed, and they ended up losing the majority. Even though combined with their junior party, the Komeito, together they did not have more than enough seats that they need. They didn't have enough seats to become the majority. So now those things are for grabs. The CDP party, which is the I forgot what the C stands for, but I think it's Community Democratic Party, Citizens or something like that. They under their man, Mr. Noda, is now trying to get the other parties that don't have a lot of delegates to join with them to present him as a prime minister. And then the LDP, on the other hand, are trying to get enough support from those other parties to give them enough to keep their prime minister in place. So it's a lot of things going on, but that's going to affect Japan a lot because, the LDP's been primarily the ruling party for years, since I would say the 50s. And with the exception of in 2009, there was, I think, some other party took over for a little bit. Because I know during 2011, the LDP wasn't in control. There was some other party, Socialist Democrat Party, something like that. I forgot what it was. And Mr. Khan was the prime minister at the time. I wasn't living in Japan, but I remember that the LDP wasn't in control for a little bit. And people didn't really like that too much. So they went ahead and went back to the LDP. But now the LDP has been rocked by some scandals this last year with this money thing, taking money or people getting money that they're not supposed to get. And Japanese didn't like that. Even though Ishida came out and tried to explain to them later, by the way, we figured it out. Or the other thing about this another money scam that popped, that they said, well, we were authorized to pay junior parties money to get support. But the Japanese people didn't see it that way. All they see is, look, we're losing money, and you politicians sitting there making money illegally, or getting money or using whatever they want to call it. So that's why they lost a lot of votes, and that confidence that he was looking for is no longer there for the LDP. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. And then you also have the American elections coming up here next week. Actually, I know in the States it's almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon here. So it's still yesterday. Oh no, it's actually this morning. I'm sorry, in the States. So they're already on the 28th. So they're waking up and saying, yeah, next week we got this election coming up. So you're going to see Harris and Trump stumping the stump out there hot and heavy until next week. Nobody knows what's going to happen with that. That's a very close race. So both of these races, the reason why I brought both these races up, because in Japan, Japanese always concern themselves with what's going on in American politics, because because the policies can change. So they're really worried about losing American protection, because America, as you know, Japan and America, we have a security agreement, and that security agreement can be rendered null and void. All it takes is for either country to say, hey, we're going to stop the security agreement, and then 1 year later it's over, and that means 1 year later Japan will have no protection if should the United States choose to take that course. Now, that is highly unlikely, but still, it worries the Japanese in the sense to where they don't know what Mr. Trump's going to do as far as if he wins, because Mr. Trump's always talking about he wants these friendly nations that are friendly to the U.S. to pay more. So Mr. Trump's way is, okay, I want you to pay up. Like NATO, I want you to pay up. Japan, I want you to pay up or pay more. Japan pays. Trust me, Japan pays better than NATO. Japan has a better account than NATO, because I was stationed in Japan for 7 years. And the facilities that I was stationed on were beautiful facilities. Kadena, every base I went to, Masaru Air Base, the facilities beautiful. Yokota Air Base, beautiful facilities. Yokosuka, because the Japanese are paying for those facilities. So the Japanese public, which is also why they voted against the LDP, because they want to change in the way that Americans are using their bases here in Japan. Okinawa, they have a lot of problems in Okinawa with little issues here with where Americans will commit sexual assault against local young Okinawan girls, and the Okinawans feel like they're getting away with it no matter what, and they're getting tired of it. They're also getting tired of looking at American military everywhere. And I'll give you an example. You know, I always got an example for shit. I was involved when I was stationed in Okinawa in trying to get a military installation moved. Yes, I am living proof. So here's what happened. This was back when George Bush, I think it was the first George Bush. Yeah, because I was, I think this was like before or after the war. I think it was before the war that I was in, before the Desert Storm. So Vice President Quayle was scheduled to come to Okinawa. I remember because I shook his hand. I met Vice President Quayle when they landed on Kadena Air Base. I was right there greeting him. And I had at that time, I had converted to Buddhism, which I still practice today. And I was living in a place called Ginowan City, where, if you know anything about Okinawa, they have the large Futenma Marine Corps Air Station, which is right in the middle of Ginowan City. You got ospreys flying all over there. You got schools right at the edge of the base, and planes flying right over the school, landing on bases, very loud. Well, I lived in Ginowan, but I lived in a condominium in Ginowan. I rented. It was a nice little condominium. I wasn't in the direct path of the aircraft and stuff like that, but Ginowan City Hall, if I look out my patio, was right down the street, kind of like about, I'd say 500 meters down the street. So when I became a Buddhist that time, one of the guys who was actually the one that helped me become a Buddhist, he worked for the city office of Ginowan. And I was also teaching English at the time. I didn't teach him English, but I was teaching English. And we used to hang out a lot. And one day, I think about a month before Dan Quayle was going to come over, he had asked me to type up a letter to President Bush calling for the closure or Futenma or moving Futenma somewhere else. It wasn't moving. It was actually he wanted to close it. So I typed the letter up. They looked at the words. Actually, I typed it up first. They looked at it. They made some edits. I went ahead and cleared those edits, checked those edits, made sure everything was okay. We went back and forth until we fine-tuned the letter. And then I gave it back to him, and he gave it to the mayor. And then the mayor of Ginowan was there when Quayle, I guess he had met with Quayle and gave him that letter to close Futenma Air Base. So that's my 5 minutes of fame on the back end. If I go to the Library of Congress today, I can find that exact letter that was written to George Herbert Walker Bush, the first George Bush, the dad president. So that letter is there somewhere. So Okinawans have been trying for years to get these American bases minimized because Okinawa, keep in mind, that small island, but that prefecture comprised about 70% of U.S. forces in Japan, right? So if you look at the military installations here, there's Misawa Air Base up north at Aomori. There's Yokota Air Base, which is outside of Tokyo, which is a very big base. But Kadena Air Base is actually the largest in Okinawa Air Base. Then you have Atsugi Naval Air Station in Kanagawa Prefecture. You have Yokosuka Naval Base in Kanagawa, right just south of Yokohama. You have Iwakuni over there in the Hiroshima Prefecture. You have Sasebo over there in Nagasaki Prefecture, in Sasebo City. And you have some minor little base, like there's there's a little army helicopter base in the middle of Tokyo. Yes, there's actually a small helicopter base in the middle of Tokyo. And then you have Komatsu, where they don't have an American military base there, but the Americans will go there, or New Chitose, what they actually call Chitose Air Base up in Hokkaido, which is the largest Japanese air base. And then they have Naha Air Base, which sometimes Americans will frequent there, which used to be run by Americans. But if in Okinawa, if I remember right, there's Kadena Air Base, there's Camp Forster, Camp Butler, Camp Swab, Camp Hansen, Camp Courtney. There's a lot of depots all over that Okinawa main island of military installations. They're doing heavy training up in Matobu. So now they're building a new Marine Air Corps station off island, in the water. I mean, there's so many different things going on. And now you see Americans, well, this is America though, but they're revitalizing one of those islands in the Pacific. They're going to open it back up to make an airstrip to counter the Chinese. So with all this going on, with the Japanese knowing that if Trump wins, he's going to want the Japanese to pay more money for these military bases there, for this protection, if you will. But the Japanese at the same time know that America really needs to have their bases in Japan to counter the China and North Korea threat. And then you got Japanese, a lot of Japanese I was watching on the news this weekend, some of the politicians they were showing that were speaking out against the bases. Even Ishiba wants to have more, he wants to share more of the cost, because he himself also sees that Japan is paying a lot of money for this protection. So there's all these things going on. Like I said, the Japanese election just happened. Now that's turned Japan upside down a little bit. And then you still got the big one, the U.S. election, which every person in Japan always follows that election because they're so concerned about what's going to happen. Here's my opinion on all this. My opinion is that Japan, and I believed this before, and for a minute I got off that bandwagon because I saw North Korea showing their ass with the missile launches and all the shit they're doing, and then China doing what they're doing over Taiwan. But here's what my thing is. With Japan's population getting older, and knowing that that Japan does not have the roles filled in their military that they need to protect their country on a long-term basis, I think Japan should go neutral like Switzerland. I think they should sever their ties, not ties, but just sever their defense security agreement with the United States. I know people are going to be up here and saying, are you crazy? Yes, I am crazy, but yes, I do believe that is the best way to do it. Because when you look at Japan, when you look at how the world looks at Japan, Japan is a place that everybody in the world wants to check out. Japan is a country that's considered to be one of the coolest countries in the world to a lot of countries. Japan is a favorable nation amongst a lot of countries. See, just about everybody in the world loves Japan. They want to come to Japan. They like Japanese culture, be it anime, be it the food, whatever the case may be. A lot of people are really feeling good about Japan, like they used to feel about America back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? So, in the 80s. So, but right now, it's Japan. Japan has been, loved ever since the 60s, when they came back online in 1964, which is why I call my other channel, Tokyo 64, because that is the year that the real Japan came out. The Japanese people did not want to partake in wars. They did not want the military running everything. They wanted to run their country peacefully, but they wanted to learn a lot of things from the West, as they've done. So I think that Japan should be a neutral country to combat all of this bullshit. And then if they do that, then the North Koreans and the Chinese would have to respect that, just like they respect that Switzerland's neutral. And I think that's going to bring in a lot more business for Japan. And that's going to allow Japan to not have to depend on the United States. And our energy costs here will go down, because our energy costs are very high because we're depending on the relationship with the United States, which means that we're also hindered on what we can buy from Russia or from Iran or whatever the case may be. So that's the way I think Japan should be, because of the fact that we have to import 99% of our resources into Japan. Yes, that's just my take. So with that all being said, I just wanted to get up here and just talk a little bit about the startup visa thing. I know I didn't go into too much detail, but I just wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention how these probably call this how the elections are affecting Japan, or going to affect could affect Japan on a larger scale, but with the military implications in there. Whatever the case, I'll figure a name out for it. Anyway, it's getting dark and I'm running out of light here in my car. So this is BSP Japan. Like I said, I will put another video up tomorrow on my way to Fukuoka, baby. So BSP Japan, I'm out. You guys take it easy.